Hello and welcome back to the Native Drum. I am your host, Shawn Littlebear. Today we will be exploring drumstick making. Drumsticks are an integral part of playing any drum, and I kind of have my own technique about making them. So this will be my take on how to make little and big drumsticks. The base material is the actual stick itself. What I like to use is shatterproof fiberglass. And you can buy any of these kind of sticks in the big box stores. These are the Reflector Sticks, or the reflector poles. They come in different sizes. I like the long ones because you get more bang for your buck. You can make different sizes out of them. There are different makers that buy from different companies because they make a different diameter of stick, which means that the thinner sticks are a little bit more flexible in that they bend more when you swing them, and then the stiffer sticks don't bend as much. So depending upon what size you're making the stick from, you may want a stiffer one, or you may want a kind of a flimsier stick. I've made little bitty sticks that are about the size of the palm of your hand to child size. These are decorator sticks. You know, add them to a little drum that I make, and then on up to child size, which would be this size. This is just an end of one of these that I really didn't have a use for it, but I kept it. And one day I decided to make a little baby stick, and people really liked it. So I made it out of the scraps from the stick and the scraps from the leather. And I had plenty of tape, and I decided to make one. So any of these sizes can be made on up to the regular powwow drumstick. And today this is what we are actually going to produce. We're going to make one, and I'm going to show you that once you decide on which size you want, this being the most popular size. We're looking at a 22.5-inch stick. I don't know why 22.5 is the most popular. I've made them out of 22 3/4, and for some reason the singers don't like them. I've made them out of 22 1/4, and they didn't like that either. So we settled on 22.5, and everybody seems to like them. So that's what size these are, and they work good for gourd dance, round dance. Even if you have a hand drum, you can actually choke up on it and make it shorter. If you were sitting at the back of the drum and you needed a longer stick, you can actually grab it at the end, and you can still sit at the drum. So this is the kind of stick that I sell the most of, even though I do sell a lot of the smaller hand drumsticks, and they're made out of various coverings. Everybody likes this size and different colors and different sizes and styles and weights to it. So this is what we're going to make. After you buy your stick, you measure it to the right length. Believe it or not, these poles come in 45-inch length, which makes it exactly 22 1/4. So that's the reason why I buy these, and I look around for them. And I usually buy a few of them at a time, and then I take them home, cut them with a hacksaw, just mark them wherever you want to mark. I usually mark it right in the middle, and then saw, and it'll make two. You can actually take the reflector end off. They're not glued on. They're just stuck on the end. I think they may have a little bit of sticky stuff to them, but they come off really easy. So you'll have to understand that it does have a two ends. The end that the reflector is on is a square end, and the end that's at the other end is a pointed or sharp end. And that's meant so you can drive it into the ground. What I do is I build up a handle from different size paper tape, masking tape, again buying the same kind of things in the hardware store. The 2-inch variety, there's 1 inch, and then there's 1.5 inches. And the reason why I buy the different sizes is because when you're doing different size handles, like for the smaller sticks, you want a different size, you can combine these to get any size handle that you need. That way you won't have to cut it down after you wrap it on. So what I started doing was on these long handles, for the big ones, these long handles are made for a man's grip. But what I found was the first ones I made, they made a clicking sound. I tried to put the seams together as much as I could and make it as smooth as I could. And then when I sewed the leather on it, the drummers came back and said it's making a clicking sound. Well, we found out when the stick flexes, the tape comes apart on one side and then it flexes on the other side and it comes apart on the other. So as these come apart and come together, the adhesive on the edge will make a pop, or it makes a clicking sound when they do it all together. So what I do to counter that is to go back over the first layer with a second layer, and this 2-inch will cover the seam for the 1-inch. So I go this way, starting out with 2-inch, 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 1-inch. Now I'll go back over it and go 2-inch, 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 and 1-inch at the end. And if you do it just right and don't add too much on the top layer, having both layers about the same, that will be your base for your handle. So once you get it to that point, you can tape the handles. I like to keep a couple of different cloth tapes. They are adhesive, and the different tapes have different kinds of adhesive on them. I found the best 2-inch tape is actually a smooth professional tape from 3M. So it costs a little more, but the results is you'll get a smoother finish on the base of your handle. So when you wrap it down with cloth tape, you're getting it ready so that you can actually spray glue a layer of leather to build up the base of your handle. So you get it to this point after you've wrapped the cloth tape around it and you're ready to make the base. You can actually take your I take some duct tape and put a small section, depending upon how long you want your head to be, and then you tape it, and you get ready for that part not to move. You taper it down and then cover it with a wrap of the cloth tape. And what that does is it's going to counteract the centrifugal force as you swing the drumstick. You don't want the head to pull off. So this is the base for the head. And then you have the base for the glue to stick on this cloth. It'll absorb it and it'll hold the leather down. So once you get to that point, you can sew. I use 2 different types of leather. One is a thicker double suede leather, and the other is a thinner double suede leather. Depending on what kind of finishing leather that you're going to have with it, if you're going to sew a thick leather on, like an elk hide, or deer skin, I usually counter it by putting a thin layer for a thick layer of elk hide, and then I put a thick layer underneath for the thin leather of buckskin. The drummers seem to like that a lot because when you grab the drumstick, you can feel that it has a squish to it, even though the leather itself is actually not that thick. So the leather underneath gives it that grip and that feel, so that they can grip it really tight without having it hurt their hand as they swing it. We use the underlayment, and then once you get it to this point, it doesn't matter if it's a big stick or if it's a small stick. Once you get it to this point, this is what I call a stick blank. Your handle's not really set and your tip is not really set. So you build it up and you make your head whatever shape you're going to make it. What I like to do is I like to use 100% cotton flannel for the wraps. And I found that it's easier to buy some old sheet sets at the thrift stores, and then take the sheet sets and take the borders off with the scissors, and then just work with the flat material. And these can be had in any thrift store you'll find relatively cheaply. So, and a sheet set for king or queen and the pillowcases will make a whole bunch of drumsticks. It just takes a sharp set of scissors to start working with it and cutting it into strips. Now once you get it into strips, depending on what kind you work with, these are the 1 inch. As you can tell, they're really long. And this is doubled. I usually cut them as they're double. This is the thicker variety, and I believe this was a full set. And this one was a twin set, and it's a thinner. But they both have good strength, and they'll make good drumsticks. So depending upon what kind of wraps you want to make, you can vary the two or put them both together. And what I like to do is, as I wrap them down, I will take some hard cloth tape that has good adhesive, and I'll wrap it down as hard as I can. And then what that does is it compresses it and gets the air out of it. So it'll make a good head, and I reinforce it with some strapping tape. Now this tape, it took me a little while to learn how to work with. I knew that it had good application, but what I found was it's really hard to break. So the breaking point being at the tip, I wrapped it from this side on the rod all the way around to the other side, and covered the wraps 4 times all the way around. And I can show you that technique, but it's going to take a little while. I prefer to do that at one of my workshops. Now what we're going to do is we are going to apply colors to the stick. Usually the only mark I make when I do the colors is just to find the center of the stick between the handle, where the handle ends, and where the tape ends for the head of the stick. And I'll find the middle point of that. I'll just use a little fabric tape, and I get my trusty lizard out here, and I'll mark the halfway point. And the reason why I do that is on these type of sticks, I wanted to point out that actually the colors that I apply to the stick are there partly because of decorative You know, people like to see colors on the stick, but mainly because you need a protectant layer to help when you're drumming with the stick. If you hit the edge of the drum with the stick, it'll damage the protective tape and not the stick itself. So I usually, even with the smaller sticks, I'll start out and just work it at an angle, and I'll apply one color all the way down just as a protective layer. That's the reason why most of my sticks, even if they're small, will have a color on them. And it's there to protect the stick. It's not there, you know, to please anybody except my eye. So anybody that buys a stick, if you want it plain and you have a Mondo set of colored vinyl tapes, I will sell them to you plain. But most of the time, they're here with colors on them for protection. If you want to take it off and apply your own colors, you know, I'm not going to be offended by that, because these are there for protection of the stick, not really for decoration. But, you know, it turns out they're there, you know, people like to see the decoration on them. So what I do is, like on these sticks, I put the smaller cuts of the colors in the middle, because if you put them at the end, you'll literally beat them off the stick. Those little sections of colors will come off. And if you put them at the end here, when you're choking up on the stick, when you remove your hand, those will start to come off, even if you super glue them on. And normally I do with some Gorilla Glue. I'll take the end of the stick where the tape ends at, and I'll put a little drop of Gorilla Glue. The only thing is, with using super glue, you have to be really careful, because if there's any dust, if there's anything that gets on the tape itself or the next to it, it will attract dirt, and then it's real hard to get back off. So I make the smaller designs in the middle of the stick and leave the solid colors for the ends. And sometimes I'll even go back over these right at the end of the stick. I'll go over it with the vinyl. And now we have not just all the colored tapes in the various colors. There are all kinds of decorator colors that you can get to match your leather, but they come in liquid form. And these are readily available in all different colors. Right now they have the primary colors. These work really great, but again, you're going to have to, it's a whole different process when you work with liquid. So today we are going to work with our round colors, and I'm going to apply colors to this stick, and then from that point we will decide which kind of leather to put on the top and the handle, and then we'll go from there. I'm going to do the most basic stick that I like to do, which is this color. It's the most requested out of all the singers here in the South, in the Southern drums. It's blue sky over red earth with the medicine colors in the middle. So that's what I'm going to do on this stick. And now that we have our middle, we're going to do a white border. So I'm going to need the white to be on the inside or near the middle. So what I will do is I'll do that first. Don't have my bifocals, so. And normally I don't measure the size. What I'll do is cut it and then start applying the tape. And I want to go just below that center mark, because I'm going to do an opposite color, which is red on the top. And these are referred to as medicine colors. And again, you don't have to be real exact. This is just the best way I know to work with. Is just, your scissors aren't going to be flat, they're going to have a curve to them. So when you look at the size, you want all these four the same size. Just remember that your scissors are not totally flat. So you're going to have to bend it around that curve. Otherwise you'll have a bulge in your tape. I've done it enough so I can make it pretty much exactly the same size. And you may want to get you a pair of scissors and work with them until you know what kind and how big your cuts are going to be. I've worked with the Fiskars for 28 years now, so I should be able to work with them and get the right size. So, and again, I have enough colors. If you notice, this color is actually a little bit, these are two yellows, but when you look at them side by side, this one looks more whitish and this one looks more orangish. So when you buy the different colors, in the store it'll say this is yellow, and in the store it'll say this is yellow. So as you go to buy them, you can see the different variations in shade. So when you buy your different type of tapes, they can all have different types of color blending. My art teacher used to say that when you deal with solid colors, you can let your eyes do the blending. So sometimes I'll put both yellows right next to each other. In fact, I have 4 different shades of yellow, and I have about 5 different shades of red. And when I put them next to each other or make different designs, you think I'm using the same color until you actually look at the stick and you find that the reds are different shades. One's a little lighter, one's a little darker. So I'm going to use the red up here in the lighter shade, and then on this part of the stick I'm going to use a darker one to represent earth. And then I'm going to use the lighter blue to represent the sky. So it will go red earth under blue sky. And there's one thing that you kind of need to realize as you deal with these tapes. As you bring them off the roll, they stretch. And I do have a variety of tape, actually that one's a little short, that as you bring it off the roll, the color was applied so that it lightens up a shade as you pull it. And some of the sticks I make look like they've kind of been tie-dyed, because as you pull the color, it will lighten up. So to counteract that, you wrap it around 2-3 times. It's like giving it a second or third coat of paint. Okay, we've applied our medicine colors to our stick here in the middle. I went a little more toward the handle because I'm going to bring the leather down on the top of our stick a little bit farther. So I want it to be more on the handle side. That way it'll look right in the middle when we finish up. Again, I'll cut some different designs and add the blue and the red. And then we'll get into covering the top and the base, your handle, with leather after we choose the colors. So this is the basic technique. You can do any of the designs that you would like to do. I hope this has helped you. We are going to finish up the stick in the next episode. And it has been wonderful to be here to show you a little bit of my technique. If you want to experiment with some of these techniques and materials and find out exactly what you need to do, I may be doing a workshop. I was happy to show you this today, and this is our episode on stick making. And we'll be back on the next episode to finish up the project. I'm Shawn Littlebear. Thank you for tuning in to The Native Drum. We'll see you on the next episode. Aho.
Catch up on past episodes of The Native Drum at catv47.com. We're also on Facebook.